In every relationship, there are unspoken rules, lines we cross without knowing, mistakes we repeat without realizing. What if I told you that some of the most common things a man does in love aren't just harmless missteps, but silent deal breakers? This isn't about playing games or tricks. It's about respect, boundaries, and the quiet strength it takes to hold your ground without losing yourself. Join me as we uncover the 9 things a man should never do with women, because sometimes the hardest lessons come wrapped in the ones we love the most. 1. The trap of endless talking when vulnerability becomes a weapon. He believed honesty was the bridge to intimacy. She said she wanted openness, so he gave her everything. His childhood scars, insecurities, the fear of not being enough. Night after night, he peeled back his armor, thinking each confession brought them closer. And for a while it seemed to. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things shifted. What began as late-night heart-to-hearts turned into loaded silences and weaponized remarks. In arguments, she repeated his secrets like ammunition. "Of course you're insecure. You told me yourself you never felt good enough." A moment of trust became a lifetime of leverage. He thought he was building intimacy. He was actually surrendering control. What he didn't realize was this: vulnerability is sacred, but only in the hands of someone who can hold it without turning it into power. And by handing her every emotional blueprint too soon, he gave her a map to dismantle him. In trying to connect, he exposed himself too early, too deeply, before she had earned it. And now the silence wasn't distance, it was calculation, and she knew exactly where to strike. 2. The savior complex, rescuing her while losing yourself. She came into his life like a storm, wounded, chaotic, unfinished. And he, ever the fixer, saw beauty in the wreckage. Her past was messy, her present unstable, and her future uncertain. But he didn't run. He stayed. He built. He believed. Every time she broke down, he was there, texting her back to sanity at 2 a.m., covering her rent when she missed work, reassuring her that she wasn't too much. He mistook her emotional volatility for depth, her instability for mystery. And he thought if he loved her hard enough, she'd finally feel whole. But she didn't want to be rescued. And the more he gave, the more she slipped through his fingers. She began to resent the very comfort he offered. Every solution felt like control. Every gesture of protection reminded her she wasn't in charge of her own life. She didn't want a hero. She wanted a mirror. And he kept handing her a ladder. The final twist? She left him for a man who didn't solve her problems, who simply watched her drown and said, "Swim." And in that moment he realized, in saving her, he stopped saving himself. He'd built her a lifeboat and jumped overboard without ever checking if she wanted to be saved in the first place. 3. Texting into oblivion when constant contact destroys the mystery. At first it was sweet, quick replies, emojis that sparked laughter, goodnight messages that felt like warm blankets. He believed constant connection was the key, proof he was present, interested, there for her. Every beep of his phone was a heartbeat closer to her, but soon the constant buzz became a suffocating noise. He sent morning texts before she was even awake, showered her with midday check-ins, and extended their conversations deep into the night. He tried to bridge every silent moment with words, afraid that any pause would unravel the fragile thread between them. What he didn't see was the slow erosion of intrigue. The mystery that once made her heart race turned into predictability. The man who once seemed confident and elusive now felt clingy and desperate. One evening, after yet another stream of texts, she typed those words that cut deeper than any fight. "I miss the man you used to be." He hadn't realized that in trying to stay close, he'd become the ghost of himself, transparent, available, and ultimately unremarkable. The irony was brutal. By chasing her attention incessantly, he pushed her further away. In the world of love, silence can be the loudest signal, and he had forgotten how to be silent. 4. Overgiving, undervalued, the fall of the pleaser. He thought love was measured in gifts, flowers on random days, surprise dinners, tickets to shows she'd never mention again. Time was currency, and he spent it lavishly, canceling plans, rearranging schedules. prioritizing her every whim. He believed generosity would cement their bond, that his constant giving would paint him as indispensable. But what he didn't notice was the slow vanishing of gratitude. She took his sacrifices like air, necessary, unnoticed, expected. The more he gave, the more she demanded. The line between thoughtful and obligatory blurred until it vanished entirely. Meanwhile, across town, a man who gave her space and time to breathe grew into the role of the valued one. He listened without drowning her in gifts. He showed up without smothering. And suddenly she was drawn to him. Not because he gave more, but because he gave less. And in doing so, gave her more of herself. He was left wondering where his love had gone wrong. The tragedy? He never realized that overgiving can suffocate desire, that sometimes absence is the most generous gift of all. 5. Chasing closure. The man who couldn't walk away. He replayed every conversation, every smile, every fight, searching for answers in the spaces between their words. When she said it was over, he refused to believe it was final. He clung to the hope of one last talk, convinced that clarity would fix the fractured pieces. He texted, called, showed up unexpectedly, each attempt a desperate plea for a sign that this wasn't the end. His mind spun stories of what could be said, what needed to be understood, what final truths might change everything. But she had already closed the door long ago. Her silence was not hesitation, it was resolve. What he mistook for confusion was her peace. What he begged for was her freedom. And in chasing closure, he trapped himself in a limbo, neither moving on nor holding on, caught in a loop of pain and denial. The cruelest twist was this. Sometimes closure isn't found in answers, but in the courage to walk away, something he still hadn't learned. 6. Emotional outbursts. When Stoicism is mistaken for indifference, until it's too late. He carried his feelings like a silent fortress, walls built high to protect, a calm exterior to hide the storms inside. To him, Stoicism was strength, a steady anchor in the chaos of emotion. He believed that showing too much would make him vulnerable, weak, unworthy. But she read his silence differently. To her, his quiet was coldness, his restraint a lack of care. She searched his eyes for warmth, only to find a distant chill. She needed him to break, to speak, to feel. But the longer he held back, the wider the distance grew. And then one night, the dam broke. Years of bottled-up frustration, fear, and disappointment exploded in a torrent of anger and tears. His outburst was raw, unfiltered, desperate, but it came too late. By then, she had convinced herself he never cared enough to try. The paradox was cruel. His stoic silence was meant to protect their love, but it became the quiet death of it. 7. Apologizing for your standards. How he lost respect by making her the center. He once held firm boundaries, lines drawn clearly around who he was and what he needed. But love changed that. Slowly, imperceptibly, he began to bend. A late night here, a silenced frustration there, a swallowed truth whenever she demanded. He apologized for wanting space, for needing time, for insisting on respect. Every no became a maybe. Every conviction diluted into compromise. He thought that by making her the center of his world, he was showing love. But in surrendering himself, he lost something far greater, her respect. She no longer saw a man who stood tall with quiet confidence. Instead, she saw a man who wilted beneath her gaze, a man whose identity depended on her approval. The spark faded, replaced by impatience and disappointment. And the cruel irony? The more he gave up his standards, the less she valued him. Not because she was ungrateful, but because strength is magnetic and weakness repels. In the desperate attempt to keep her close, he lost the very thing that once made her want to stay. 8. Playing therapist when she wants passion, not a life coach. He wore the role of the patient listener like armor, absorbing her fears, dissecting her doubts, offering advice with the calm precision of a counselor. He believed understanding her every nuance was the key to love, that analyzing her pain would bring them closer. But what she craved wasn't analysis, it was fire. She wanted a man who ignited her soul, who challenged her boundaries, who stirred passion with reckless abandon. Instead, she found herself staring into the eyes of someone who reflected her struggles back like a mirror. Safe, predictable, but hollow. His constant need to fix and explain drained the spontaneity from their moments. Instead of desire, there was exhaustion. Instead of connection, detachment. Then came the shattering moment, whispered in frustration and heartbreak, "You're not my man, you're my mirror." In trying to heal her wounds, he'd become a shadow, one that showed her every flaw without offering the warmth of genuine passion. And sometimes love doesn't want to be understood, it wants to be felt. 9. The final mistake, sacrificing his purpose for her love. He paused his dreams, dimmed his ambitions, and rewrote his future, all for her. The man who once chased goals with relentless fire now found his drive fading, eclipsed by the need to keep her close. He convinced himself that love required sacrifice, that giving up a part of himself was the ultimate proof of devotion.